While so-called free countries like Australia remain locked down and closed to visitors, the rest of the world is starting to open up. And while some of those countries require a vaccine or a PCR test or a home quarantine upon arrival, there are, right now, 6 countries where you don't even need a PCR test to enter. I'm going to tell you what they are. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist. We're the channel and the company that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go where you're treated best. And one of the things that I've been doing over the last year is keeping an eye on what countries are open. I've been pretty fortunate myself to where I was in Malaysia when things got heated. Had a pretty good time over that 6 or 7 month period as the country reopened, left for Eastern Europe, then left for Latin America, back to Eastern Europe, and I've been pretty much free ever since. And right now, a lot of people around the world haven't had that freedom. They've been stuck in lockdown, they've had travel restrictions, but the world has started opening up. And we've said that Latin America, particularly Central America, and Eastern Europe have been 2 of the most open areas. And so that's to surprise you that most of the countries on this list of 6 countries where you don't need a PCR test to visit are in those parts of the world. But there are a couple of wild cards and some caveats. The first country is Mexico. Mexico has been one of the most open countries throughout the entire pandemic. We host our sold-out conference, Nomad Capitalist, live there earlier this year, and really couldn't have had a better place to host a conference. Was really excited that we sold it out, but was also kind of concerned, like, what's happening with COVID, that Mexico really came through for us because they were open. The president, with whom probably don't agree with a lot of things on, has said we need to keep our country open. We need to keep people working. Now, whether you agree with it or not, you can get into Mexico without a test. And that has caused some tour companies to say that they're not selling out a lot of Mexico because some tourists have preferred that their tour groups are vaccinated. I've never really been a tour group kind of guy. Perhaps you're not either. And so you can go to Mexico on your own. No test required. Enjoy any of the vast different areas throughout Mexico. Just don't go to Tulum, the place I couldn't wait to leave. Also, number 2, Colombia, no test required. Currently in Colombia, was in Colombia earlier this year when the day before I arrived in Colombia, they said, you know what, now we want a test. And I had to scramble to get a test at the last minute, got in with no problems. And things were a bit more restrictive back then. It wasn't really that difficult. Now things are pretty much wide open. Everything is pretty much back to normal. A lot of people do choose to wear masks in Colombia, much more so than Mexico, but the government is not requiring a test, and just brought a couple associates of mine into the country recently, came through immigration with one of them. It was really quite simple, in and out. So Colombia, one of the most open countries in the world right now. Costa Rica, also very open. I have a number of people who have been moving to Costa Rica as they have chosen earlier this year to keep some of the tax incentives that they have in the country. And so if you're looking for beaches, if you're looking for mountains, if you're looking for that Costa Rican vibe, if you're looking for the Costa Rican laid-back atmosphere, then it's open. You can simply show up. So another great place to check out as well. Also, the Dominican Republic has been one of the most open countries throughout this entire time. Now, the DR, why? I think the other countries speak to this to some extent. The DR is, we need tourist dollars. We need people coming. We need our people working. And so when people say to me, Andrew, what are you going to do when every country in the world follows the same playbook and it's the New World Order and they're all going to have you? I said, wait a second. I mean, look at what you saw in terms of resistance. I mean, you've seen resistance to things like CRS. You've seen plenty of holdouts in countries that aren't part of the new global minimum tax. You've seen, all kinds of countries that just don't want to be part of what everyone else is doing. And then you've seen even the countries that join some of those things just not enforce it very well, or they have exemptions, or there's exceptions, or there's loopholes, whatever the case may be. The idea that every country going forward is going to function the way the US or Australia or Canada or New Zealand does, to me is simply ridiculous. And it shows that if you're in that bubble, then that's the kind of news that you're hearing. But you're not seeing how the Dominican Republics of the world, they need to keep moving. And I've seen articles from countries around the world that as they're reopening saying, we just can't keep going anymore. We don't have the US dollar to print. We don't have a bunch of money sitting around, and we can't just borrow money for nothing to give people to sit at home. We have to have a functioning economy of its own merits. And I think that the DR is perhaps one of those. And now it's interesting. I'm going to get to the last 2 countries in a moment. What's interesting about these 4 countries in Latin America is that they are all countries that offer residence permits for those who want to come there. So Mexico, if you have an income, if you have some wealth, you can get a residence permit in Mexico. Colombia, you can do a residence permit by starting a business. What's probably more straightforward if you have the investment capital is simply buying some real estate. They raised the amount recently, but still only about $200,000. You can buy a decent place in many parts of Colombia, including in Bogota, Medellin, on the coast, for $200,000. Buying yourself a nice little second home. You can get instant permanent residence, and you can get a pathway to citizenship. Costa Rica, residence. You need to live there for citizenship, but if you want to live there, you've got a good tax situation. You can work towards what's a very interesting, very agnostic second passport, where they're not in all the drama, the geopolitical drama, the military drama that many of the other countries that you're watching from are involved in. The DR, more shaky citizenship program, residence program, but it does exist. So very interesting countries to go and check out if you're looking at potentially getting a second residence somewhere, buying a second property. These countries are open, and you can reward them with your dollars by visiting. 2 countries in Europe with no tests. Now, if you're vaccinated, a lot of countries in Europe are wide open. But if you're not and you don't have a test, Slovakia and Romania are open. Here's the caveat. With a quarantine, if you test negative after a while, potentially you can get out early. Obviously, kind of defeats the purpose. If the goal is just being able to go and explore, you're going to go and, for the first 2 weeks, I think is generally the case, you're going to be stuck inside. But they are technically open with no test if you are unvaccinated, Slovakia and Romania. So those are the 6 countries. Obviously, these things change on a day-to-day basis, and so it's impossible to keep on top of it. But Latin America, Eastern Europe have been some of the most open. The Eastern European countries like Turkey, Montenegro, Serbia do require a test. Sometimes they ask for it, sometimes they don't. Obviously, you want to have one ready anyway. They're not perhaps as particular about it as some other countries would be, but they do require a test. Otherwise, still pretty easy to go to most of those Eastern European countries. Definitely worth a visit, but when it comes to absolutely no requirements, wide open, those are the countries that are open right now. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.